Imagine a woman marketed as a nobody unemployed, dependent while secretly ruling a tech empire. Elena Voss built Nextech under a hidden identity, enduring her husband's betrayal and his friends' scorn. For years, she gathered evidence of their crimes fraud, insider trading, corruption. Then, in one explosive day, she unmasked herself as CEO, fired them all, and unleashed justice. This is a tale of hidden strength, poetic revenge, and a new era rising from the ashes. My name is Elena Voss, though for years most people knew me as Elena Harper housewife, shadow, punchline. To my husband, James, and his insufferable circle of friends, I was the unemployed woman who lucked out by marrying a successful man. They'd laugh over their overpriced whiskey, tossing barbs like, "What do you do all day, Elena? Perfect your brownie recipe, or James must love playing sugar daddy." I'd smile, nod, and pour them another round, letting the venom slide off me like rain on glass. They had no idea who I really was. And that was exactly how I wanted it. The truth, I was the founder and shadow CEO of Nextech, a multi-billion-dollar tech empire that had quietly reshaped the industry over the past decade. Under the alias Evie Grayson, I'd built it from a single laptop in a cramped apartment, long before I met James. Nextech wasn't just a company. It was my brainchild, a fortress of innovation I'd guarded with a carefully constructed double life. James thought I spent my days shopping or binge-watching TV. In reality, I was running board meetings through encrypted calls, steering a team of brilliant minds, and outmaneuvering competitors all while he slept beside me, oblivious. Why the secrecy? At first, it was necessity. Tech was a boys' club when I started, and I'd seen too many women dismissed or sabotaged. A gender-neutral pseudonym gave me an edge. No one questioned Evie Grayson's authority. Later, it became strategy. Staying hidden let me observe, listen, and gather intel no one suspected I'd use. And after marrying James, it turned into something else, a shield. I wanted to see who he really was when he thought I had nothing to offer but a pretty face. What I saw broke me, then forged me anew. James wasn't just condescending, he was a traitor. 5 years into our marriage, I caught the first whiff of his betrayal. Late-night calls he'd brush off as work, hushed meetings with his buddies Mark, Trevor, and Lila, all Nextech execs he'd brought into the fold. I'd handpicked them years ago, trusting James's judgment when he vouched for their loyalty. Big mistake. Through my shadow network, I learned they were skimming profits, insider trading Nextech stock, and burying complaints of harassment to protect their own. Worse, they'd started a campaign to undermine Grayson, spreading rumors he was a recluse losing his grip. They didn't know Grayson was me, the woman serving them coffee while they plotted. For years, I swallowed it. The snide remarks at dinner parties, "Elena, you should get a hobby," while they flaunted their success built on my work. The way James would pat my hand and say, "Don't worry, babe, I've got us covered," as if I were a helpless child. The sting of finding lipstick on his collar, paired with Lila's smug glances across the table, I endured it all, not because I was weak, but because I was patient. Revenge isn't a sprint, it's a marathon, and I was training for the finish line. I started collecting evidence, screenshots of encrypted emails, recordings of their backroom deals, financial trails they thought they'd buried. I hacked their account's child's play for someone who'd coded Nextech's security systems and watched their every move. I documented the discrimination too. Female employees passed over for promotions, silenced when they spoke up. It wasn't just personal anymore. It was systemic. And I was going to burn it all down. The plan crystallized on a rainy Tuesday in March 2025. James came home late, reeking of bourbon and arrogance, bragging about a deal he'd closed stock manipulation he'd pinned on a junior analyst. "Grayson's too busy hiding to notice," he sneered. That was the moment I decided. Enough. The next day, March 24th, 2025, would be their reckoning. I woke before dawn, adrenaline humming through me like electricity. James snored beside me, oblivious to the storm brewing. I slipped out of bed, brewed coffee, and logged into my secure server. Years of preparation came down to this one explosive day to dismantle their world and reclaim mine. First, I finalized the legal packets. My team loyalists who knew my identity had been briefed weeks ago. They'd compiled airtight cases, SEC violations, fraud, harassment lawsuits. I'd hired the best attorneys money could buy, working under NDAs so tight they'd choke on their own tongues before leaking. The evidence was overwhelming, hundreds of pages, time-stamped, notarized, undeniable. Next, I scheduled the board meeting. At 10 a.m., every Nextech executive would gather in the glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor. James, Mark, Trevor, Lila, they'd strut in, expecting another routine power play. Instead, they'd face me. I dressed carefully, a tailored black suit, sharp enough to cut through their egos, heels that clicked like a countdown. James stumbled downstairs as I finished my coffee. "Big day today," he mumbled, grabbing his keys. "Don't wait up." "Oh, I wouldn't miss it," I said, smiling sweetly. He didn't catch the edge in my voice. At 9:45, I walked into Nextech headquarters. The lobby buzzed with employees who nodded at me. Some knew me as James's wife, others as a vague consultant. None knew the truth. Yet. I took the elevator to the top floor, my heart steady, my mind razor sharp. The boardroom was packed when I entered. James sat at the head of the table, flanked by his cronies. They barely glanced up as I slipped in, assuming I was there to drop off files or play errand girl. The projector hummed, displaying their latest scheme, a merger built on cooked books. I let them talk, their voices dripping with confidence, until James said, "Grayson's out of touch. Time for new leadership." That's when I stood. "Funny you mention Grayson," I said, my voice cutting through the room like a blade. Heads turned. James frowned, confused. "Because I've been listening to you trash me for years." Silence. Then laughter marks barking guffaw. Lila's smirk. "Elena, what the hell are you talking about?" James snapped. I clicked the remote. The screen changed to a photo of me, younger, hunched over that first laptop, time-stamped 2010. "Evie Grayson," I said. "Elena Voss Grayson. Me." The room froze. James's face drained of color. Trevor choked on his coffee. Lila's smirk vanished. "I built Nextech," I continued, pacing now, every word a hammer. "Every line of code, every deal, every dollar. It's mine. And you? You've been stealing from me, mocking me, cheating on me." I locked eyes with James, while I watched and waited. I tossed folders onto the table evidence, spilling out like confetti. "Insider trading, fraud, harassment, you're done." I nodded to security who'd slipped in behind me. "Escort them out, they're fired." Chaos erupted. James lunged toward me, shouting, "You can't do this!" But guards grabbed him. Mark swore, Trevor begged, Lila screamed about lawyers. I didn't flinch. As they were dragged away, I turned to the stunned board. "Nextech's mine now fully, and we're starting over." The boardroom was still ringing with the echoes of their protests as security hauled James, Mark, Trevor, and Lila out. I stood at the head of the table, the projector casting my shadow across the wall, a silhouette of the woman I'd hidden for too long. The remaining board members stared at me, mouths agape, some with dawning respect, others with naked fear. Good. They should be afraid. I wasn't just taking back Nextech, I was rewriting its soul. "Meeting adjourned," I said, voice calm but steel-edged. "We reconvene tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring your best ideas or your resignations." I didn't wait for responses. I strode out, leaving them to process the wreckage. Downstairs, the lobby was a circus. News had leaked fast. Reporters swarmed the entrance, cameras flashing, shouting questions. "Is it true Evie Grayson's a woman?" "What's happening to the execs?" My team had tipped off select outlets, a calculated move to control the narrative. I slipped out a side exit into a waiting car and dialed my COO, Priya Khan, one of the few who'd known my secret from the start. "It's done," I said. "About damn time," she replied, her voice crackling with pride. "The SEC's already moving. Arrest warrants are out. Social media's exploding. Grayson reveals trending." "Let it burn," I said. "We've got work to do." Back at my penthouse, our penthouse, though James wouldn't set foot here again, I poured a glass of wine and watched the city skyline glitter. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts from James. "You psychotic bitch, you'll regret this." Voicemails from Lila. "I'll sue you into the ground." Panicked emails from board members pleading loyalty. I ignored them all. The real battle was just beginning. By midnight, the arrests hit the news. James and his crew, handcuffed and disheveled, paraded before cameras. Insider trading, fraud, embezzlement charges that'd stick, thanks to my meticulous evidence. The harassment suits were next. I'd handed over dossiers from silenced employees, women who'd been groped, belittled, or fired for daring to complain. Poetic justice wasn't just sweet, it was surgical. The next morning, I walked into Nextech like I owned it, because I did. No more shadows, no more aliases. Employees lined the halls, some clapping, others whispering. I'd expected skepticism, maybe resentment, but the air buzzed with something else. Hope. They'd been crushed under James's reign, too. The board meeting was a bloodbath. Half the members resigned, tails between their legs. The rest stayed, eager to prove their worth. I laid out my vision. Transparency, meritocracy, innovation, no more old boys club. "We're auditing everything," I said. "Every deal, every hire, every dime. If you've got skeletons, confess now or I'll find them." Over the next weeks, Nextech became a war zone and a rebirth. I fired dozens implicated in the corruption, promoted overlooked talent women, minorities, young geniuses who'd been ignored. I met with the harassment victims personally, promising justice and reform. One, a coder named Maya, handed me a USB drive. "They deleted this," she said. "Proofmark tanked my project to spite me." I smiled. "He's gone. You're lead developer now." James tried to fight back. He hired a shark of a lawyer claiming I'd entrapped him, that our marriage gave him rights to Nextech. The divorce filing I'd prepared, complete with photos of him and Lila, shut that down fast. "You built your cage," I told him through my attorney. "Enjoy it." The media frenzy grew. I gave one interview to a journalist I trusted, laying out my story. The years of hiding, the betrayal, the plan. "I didn't just want revenge," I said. "I wanted transformation." The article went viral, painting me as a feminist icon, a corporate avenger. I didn't care about the labels. I cared about the work. But it wasn't all triumph. Late at night, alone, the weight hit me. I'd lost a marriage, a facade of a life, friends who'd never really known me. I'd won, but at a cost. Then I'd look at the new Nextech teams collaborating, ideas soaring, a culture healing, and know it was worth it. 3 months later, Nextech's stock hit an all-time high. The legal battles were winding down. James and his crew faced decades in prison, their reputations ash. I stood on the rooftop of our redesigned headquarters, glass walls reflecting a sunset that felt like a promise. Below, employees streamed out laughing, alive with purpose. This was my legacy now. I wasn't done. I launched a foundation for women in tech, funded by the profits James had tried to steal. I hired Maya to run it, her quiet strength a mirror of my own. At the launch gala, I took the stage not as Evie Grayson, but as Elena Voss. No more masks. "Here's to hidden strength," said, raising a glass, "and to building something better." The applause was deafening. I stepped down into a crowd of allies, innovators, dreamers. This was my power, not just to destroy, but to create. And I was just getting started. Rebuilding Nextech wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a war I hadn't anticipated. 3 months after the gala, with the company thriving and my name synonymous with disruption, I thought I'd claimed victory. I was wrong. Power doesn't just attract allies, it paints a target on your back. It started with whispers. Anonymous posts on X claimed Nextech's clean slate was a PR stunt, that I'd buried my own scandals to look heroic. Then came the cyber attacks, sophisticated, relentless, targeting our servers with precision that screamed insider knowledge. I'd spent years fortifying our systems, but this was different. Someone knew my playbook. I called Priya into my office, the city skyline sprawling behind us. "Who's hitting us?" I asked, pacing. She tapped her tablet, pulling up logs. Traces lead to a shell company, Vortex Dynamics. No public face, but they're poaching our clients with suspiciously similar tech. Competitors? I asked. More than that, she said. I dug deeper. Vortex's funding ties back to a venture capital firm owned by Trevor's brother-in-law. Trevor. Of course. Even from a jail cell, he'd found a way to swing back. I should have known. Rats don't just scurry away, they gnaw at the foundations. "Get me everything," I said. Financials, personnel, their next moves. While Priya hunted, I faced another ghost. My phone rang, James's lawyer, voice oily with faux civility. "My client's offering a deal. Drop the charges, split Nextech's assets, and he'll stay quiet about your methods." "My methods?" I laughed, cold and sharp. "You mean outsmarting him? Tell him to enjoy his orange jumpsuit. I'm not negotiating with a corpse." The call ended, but unease lingered. James didn't have leverage unless he'd kept something from me, a card up his sleeve. I pushed it aside. Paranoia wouldn't help. Focus on Vortex. Days later, Priya delivered. "They've got a mole," she said, sliding a dossier across my desk. "Lila's assistant, Claire. She's been feeding them intel since the takedown." Claire quiet, mousy Claire, who'd cried when I fired Lila, swearing loyalty. Betrayal stung, but I'd learned to expect it. "Bring her in," I said. Claire cracked fast. In a glass-walled office, flanked by security, she confessed Vortex had blackmailed her with fabricated dirt, promising a payout. "I didn't want to," she sobbed. "They said you'd never know." "I always know," I replied, voice ice. She was gone by noon fired, not prosecuted. Mercy wasn't weakness, it was strategy. I needed her out, not martyred. Vortex wasn't done. At a tech conference in San Francisco, their CEO, a slick ex-Silicon Valley shark named Victor Kane, took the stage. "Nextech's a house of cards," he sneered. "Elena Voss isn't a visionary. She's a vengeful wife playing dress-up." The crowd murmured, some nodding. He unveiled a prototype, our unreleased AI, stolen through Claire. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face stone. Backstage, I cornered him. "Nice trick, Kane. Enjoy it while it lasts." He smirked, towering over me. "You're out of your depth, Voss. This isn't a boardroom. It's a battlefield." "Then you should have brought an army," I said, walking away. War it was. I rallied my team. We traced Vortex's funding, exposed their shell companies, and leaked it to the press. I sued for intellectual property theft, burying them in litigation. Meanwhile, I fast-tracked our AI launch. Better, bolder, untouchable. At the unveiling, I took the stage, Kane's words echoing in my ears. "They say I'm a house of cards," I told the packed auditorium. "Let's see who's still standing when the wind blows." The crowd roared. Our stock soared. Vortex faltered. Their investors spooked. Kane's smug face faded from headlines as his empire cracked. But the personal ghosts wouldn't rest. Late one night, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my sister, Sophie, estranged for years, her eyes red. James called me from prison, she said. He's saying you framed him, that you're a monster. I don't know what to believe. I let her in, poured coffee, and told her everything, the lies, the evidence, the truth. She listened, silent, then hugged me. I should have known you were stronger than all of us, she whispered. It wasn't absolution, but it was a start. 6 months later, Vortex collapsed bankrupt, disgraced. Kane vanished. A footnote. Nextech stood taller, our culture a beacon. Diverse, fearless, innovative. I walked the halls daily, no longer a shadow, but a force mentoring, challenging, building. At home, I framed Sophie's note, proud of you. The divorce finalized. James's appeals failed. I sold the penthouse, bought a sleek loft, mine alone. One evening, watching the sunset, I realized I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Nextech's next chapter loomed. Global expansion, new frontiers. Rivals watched, waiting for me to stumble. Let them. I'd forged my strength in betrayal's fire, and I'd never hide again. A year after Vortex's fall, Nextech wasn't just a company, it was a movement. Our AI redefined industries, from healthcare to renewable energy, and our transparent culture drew talent like moths to flame. I'd turned a tech giant into a global force, and the world noticed. Invitations flooded in, keynotes in Tokyo, summits in Berlin, a UN panel on innovation. I'd stepped out of the shadows, and now the spotlight burned. But light attracts more than admirers. It draws predators. The first sign came during a trip to Singapore. I'd just finished a speech, 5,000 attendees, standing ovation. When Priya pulled me aside, her face tight. We've got a problem. Someone's buying up our suppliers quietly, aggressively. They're boxing us in. Who? I asked, adrenaline spiking. Still digging, she said. But it's big, coordinated. This isn't a lone wolf, it's a pack. Back at headquarters, we mapped it out. 3 key suppliers, rare earth metals, chip manufacturers, software integrators, had been snapped up by obscure firms. The pattern was clear: choke Nextech's production, cripple our growth. I recognized the tactic scorched earth, straight from the playbook of old-school tycoons. But who had the cash and the grudge? The answer hit at 3 a.m. a week later. I was poring over financials when Priya burst in, laptop in hand. It's Helix Group, she said. Old money, European conglomerate. They've been silent for years, but now they're moving. And guess who's advising them? I didn't need to guess. Lila, I said, the name bitter on my tongue. She'd dodged prison barely thanks to a plea deal, vanishing after her disgrace. Now she was back, a ghost with a vendetta. She's their strategist, Priya confirmed. And she's good. They're targeting our Asia expansion, new factories, partnerships. If they cut us off, we're dead in the water. I leaned back, mind racing. Then we fight smarter. We did. I flew to Seoul, met with secondary suppliers, locked in backup deals. Priya leaked Helix's moves to X, framing it as a dinosaur stomping on progress. Public outrage flared, pressuring their investors. I called in favors from allies in Tokyo and Shanghai, securing emergency resources. Helix wanted a siege. I turned it into a chess match, but Lila knew me too well. At a trade expo in London, she struck again. Helix unveiled a rival AI eerily close to ours, with tweaks to dodge lawsuits. The crowd buzzed. Analysts whispered Nextech's reign might end. Layla took the stage, her smile a dagger. Innovation isn't about revenge, she said, eyes on me in the front row. It's about vision, something Elena Voss lacks. The room shifted, doubt creeping in. I stood, clapping slowly, drawing every gaze. Vision built Nextech, I said, voice carrying. What's your excuse, Lila? Stealing scraps to prop up a dying empire? I walked out, leaving her fuming. The clip went viral. Phosphus Lila trended for days. Back home, the war escalated. Helix sabotaged a factory deal in Malaysia. I countered with a new plant in Vietnam. They poached a key engineer. I hired 2 better ones. It was brutal, exhilarating, exhausting. Late nights bled into dawn. My loft a command center of coffee cups and whiteboards. I thrived on it until I didn't. One evening, Sophie showed up unannounced, her face pale. "You're killing yourself, Elena," she said, eyeing the chaos. "This isn't strength. It's obsession." "I'm fine," I snapped, but her words lodged deep. I hadn't slept in days, hadn't eaten beyond protein bars. The mirror showed a stranger hollow cheeks, shadowed eyes. I'd beaten James, Trevor, Lila once, but now I was fighting ghosts of my own making. She stayed, cooked dinner, forced me to sit. "You've won," she said. "You don't have to prove it every second." I wanted to argue, but the warmth of her presence cracked something in me. I cried first time in years, not defeat, but release. The next day, I shifted gears. I delegated more to Priya, hired a deputy CEO, a brilliant woman from Mumbai named Anika. I took a weekend off, walked the beach with Sophie, let the waves wash away the noise. When I returned, I was sharper, not softer. Helix faltered. Their AI flopped buggy, overhyped. Investors bailed, stock tanked. Lila's gambit failed. And whispers said she'd been axed. I didn't gloat. I built. Nextech's Asia launch crushed it. Factories hummed, partnerships solidified. We weren't just surviving, we were unstoppable. 6 months later, I stood on a balcony in Hong Kong, overlooking a city that pulsed with possibility. Nextech's global footprint was secure offices in 20 countries, tech shaping millions of lives. The Foundation for Women in Tech had launched chapters worldwide, Maya at the helm. I'd turned betrayal into a legacy. At a gala that night, I spoke to a sea of faces, leaders, innovators, dreamers. "Strength isn't hiding," I said. "It's standing tall, scars and all." They cheered, but I felt it deeper. I'd become the woman I'd always been, unapologetic, unbroken. Later, alone, I got a text from Sophie. "Mom wants to see you." Our mother, distant, critical, a wound I'd ignored. I typed back, "Soon." Healing wasn't just corporate, it was personal. I'd face that next. The horizon glowed. Helix was dust, Lila a memory. New rivals loomed, but I was ready. This was my empire forged in fire, built on truth. And it was only the beginning. The Hong Kong gala was a triumph, but Sophie's text lingered like a splinter under my skin. "Mom wants to see you." I'd avoided that door for years. Too many memories of clipped words, cold silences, a woman who'd never understood me. But I wasn't the Elena who'd run from her anymore. I was the architect of Nextech, a name whispered in awe and fear. If I could topple Helix, I could face Margaret Voss. I flew back to Seattle, where Sophie had settled after our truce. Mom lived an hour north in a weathered house overlooking Puget Sound. The drive was quiet, the sky heavy with clouds. I hadn't seen her since Dad's funeral 8 years ago, when she'd said, "You'll never amount to much, Elena, just like him." I'd built Nextech to prove her wrong, but the scars still ached. Sophie met me at the door, her smile tentative. "She's frail," she warned, "but still sharp. Go easy." Inside, Mom sat by a window, gray hair pulled tight, eyes like flint. She didn't stand, just nodded. So the big shot finally shows up. "Hello, Mom," I said, keeping my voice even. "You wanted to talk?" She waved a hand at a chair. "Sit. I've been watching you on TV, all that noise about your company. Thought you'd forgotten where you came from." "I didn't forget," I said, sharper than intended. "I moved on." She snorted. "Moved on from me, you mean? Your sister says you're some kind of hero now. I say you're still running from him, from us." Him, Dad. The dreamer who'd tinkered with gadgets in the garage, promising big ideas that never paid off. He'd died broke, leaving us to scrape by. I'd inherited his mind, but not his failures. "I'm not running," I said. "I built something." That's more than he ever did. Her eyes narrowed, then softened, a flicker I hadn't expected. "He'd be proud, you know. Fool that he was." She coughed, a rattling sound. "I wasn't. Not then. But I see it now." The words hit like a punch. I didn't know I'd needed them until they landed. "Why now?" I asked. "Time," she said simply. "And Sophie, she wouldn't shut up about you." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "You're tougher than I thought." We talked for hours, halting, raw, real. No apologies, just truths. When I left, she gripped my hand, frail but firm. "Don't be a stranger." I nodded, throat tight. Sophie hugged me outside. "Told you," she whispered. I drove back lighter, the past stitched into something I could carry. But peace didn't last. 2 days later, Priya called, voice urgent. "We've got a crisis. A quantum computing startup, Qubit Labs, just cracked a breakthrough we've been chasing. They're shopping it to the highest bidder, and China's in the race." I sat up, mind shifting gears. "How close are we to our own?" 6 months, maybe," she said. "If they sell, we lose the edge. Military contracts, global markets. It's a domino effect." "Who else is bidding?" I asked. "Everyone. U.S. government, EU consortium, private players. But there's a wild card, Ragnar Ekstrom." Ekstrom. Swedish billionaire, recluse, rumored to fund shadow projects, AI weapons, surveillance tech. If he got Qubit Labs, Nextech wouldn't just lose a lead. We'd face a rival who played dirty. "Set up a meeting," I said. "I'm going in." The Qubit Labs founders met me in Zurich, 2 nerds in hoodies, brilliant but naive. "We want to change the world," said the lead Jonas, "but we need funding." "I'll give you that," I said, leaning in. "Nextech doesn't just fund, we build. Partner with us, and you'll have resources, freedom, a legacy, not a paycheck from a dictator or a warlord." They wavered, tempted. Then Ekstrom's shadow fell. His Repicold woman, named Ingrid, cornered them after, whispering promises of billions, no strings. I countered with a public pitch on X. "Qubit Labs can join a future of progress or sell out to shadows. Choose wisely." The post blew up, pressure mounting. Days later, Jonas called. "We're with you. Ekstrom's too creepy." I exhaled victory for now. We acquired Qubit Labs, fast-tracking our quantum leap. But Ekstrom didn't slink away. A week later, a drone crashed near our Seattle lab unmarked military grade. No proof, but I knew his signature. "Game on," I muttered, staring at the wreckage. Ekstrom wasn't Lila or Helix. He was a phantom, patient, lethal. Over months, the skirmishes grew. Hacked patents, bribed regulators, rumors of Nextech overreach. I fortified our defenses, hired ex-intelligence operatives, turned our labs into fortresses. The team thrived under pressure, quantum tech racing ahead. Personally, I anchored myself. Monthly dinners with Sophie and Mom became ritual laughter, stories, a tether to who I'd been. One night, Mom handed me Dad's old notebook sketches of circuits, wild dreams. "He saw it in you," she said. I kept it on my desk, a quiet fuel. At Nextech's annual summit, I took the stage 50,000 viewers online, a packed hall. "We're not just innovators," I declared. "We're guardians of progress, of truth. The shadows won't win." The crowd roared, but I felt Ekstrom's eyes, somewhere in the ether. That night, Priya flagged a break-in attempt, thwarted, but close. "He's testing us," she said. I nodded. "Let him. We'll be ready." I stood on my loft's balcony, city lights sprawling. Ekstrom loomed, a storm on the horizon. But I'd faced worse betrayal, doubt myself. This was my empire, my fight, and I'd never back down. Ragnar Ekstrom didn't just play in the shadows, he owned them. For months, he'd circled Nextech like a shark, probing weaknesses, striking silently. The drone crash was a warning. The hacked patents, a flex. But I'd learned to read the game. He wasn't testing me anymore. He was ready to strike. It started in November 2026, as Nextech prepared to unveil our quantum platform QNex at a global summit in Dubai. The tech was revolutionary. Faster encryption, predictive modeling, a leap that could secure economies or destabilize them. We'd locked it down tight encrypted servers, triple authentication, guards on every lab. I thought we were untouchable. I was wrong. 3 days before the launch, Priya burst into my office, face ashen. "They've got it," she said, slamming a tablet down. QNex's core code leaked on the dark web an hour ago. My stomach dropped. "How?" I demanded, scrolling the data, our algorithms, our breakthroughs, exposed like a gutted fish. "Inside job," she said. "Someone bypassed the third layer. We're tracing it, but the damage." "Contain it," I cut in, mind racing. "Lock every system, pull the team in now, and find the mole." Within hours, we pinpointed the breach. A junior coder, Ravi, recruited 6 months ago. Security dragged him in, sweating, stammering. "I didn't mean to," he blurted. "They threatened my family. Said they'd kill them if I didn't." "Who?" I pressed, voice steel. "Ekstrom's people," he said, eyes darting. "A woman, Ingrid. She gave me a drive, said it was untraceable." I believed him. Fear that raw can't be faked. But belief didn't fix the mess. Ekstrom had our crown jewel, and Dubai was 72 hours away. I called Anika, my deputy. "Kill the demo," I said. "We're pivoting." "Pivot how?" she asked, incredulous. "We've got governments, investors." "We show them something else," I said. "The backup project QNex Lite. It's not the full deal, but it's secure. Buy us time." She nodded, rallying the team. I turned to Priya. "Leak a decoy. Flood the dark web with fake QNex code enough bugs to cripple whoever uses it." "On it," she said, a grim smile flickering. We fought back, clawing control from chaos. Dubai arrived like a fever dream. The summit glittered skyscrapers, suits, power in every handshake. I took the stage, 10,000 eyes on me, Ekstrom's shadow lurking somewhere in the crowd. QNex Lite, I announced, unveiling a sleek prototype. A taste of what's coming? Secure? Scalable? Ours. The room erupted, but I saw the doubt in some faces. They'd heard whispers of the leak. Backstage, Ingrid approached, tall, blonde, eyes like ice. "Bold move, Voss," she said, voice low. "But you're bleeding. Ragnar sends his regards." "Tell him to enjoy the decoy," I shot back. "He'll choke on it." She smirked and vanished. Hours later, reports trickled in. Ekstrom's buyers rogue states. Black market tech lords were scrambling. The fake code had crashed their systems, costing millions. Checkmate. For now. But he wasn't done. A week later, a bomb threat hit our Berlin office false, but it evacuated 2,000 people, tanking our stock. Then a smear campaign. Articles claiming QNex was stolen tech, my leadership a fraud. X lit up with hashtag Vossfall. I countered with transparency-released audit trails, proving our work. The tide turned, but the bruises lingered. Late one night, Sophie called, voice trembling. "Someone broke into Mom's house. She's okay, but they trashed it. Left a note. Back off." I flew to Seattle, rage boiling. Mom sat in her kitchen, defiant despite the mess. "I'm not scared," she said, clutching Dad's notebook, now torn. "But you be careful." "This ends now," I told her, kissing her forehead. Sophie hugged me, eyes fierce. "Finish him." I did. Back at Nextech, I greenlit a trap. We fed Ekstrom intel fake plans for a QNex rollout in Stockholm, his backyard. My ex-intelligence hires rigged it. Surveillance, decoy servers, a sting. He bit. Ingrid led a team in, hacking live caught on camera, traced to his Swiss compound. I handed it to Interpol, the FBI, every agency that had listened. Ekstrom's empire unraveled. Arrests followed Ingrid, lieutenants. Finally him, dragged from a private jet in Geneva. Headlines screamed, "Tech mogul busted." Nextech stock rebounded. QNext Lite a hit. The full version launched 3 months later to Parishi untouchable. Spring 2027. I stood on Nextech's rooftop, wind whipping my hair. Below, the city thrummed alive, resilient like me. Ekstrom was gone, his shadow lifted. The team celebrated. Priya with champagne, Annika with stats record profits, global reach. Maya's foundation thrived, mentoring thousands. At home, I rebuilt with Mom and Sophie. We fixed her house, framed Dad's notebook, shared quiet nights. "You're enough," Mom said once, voice soft. I believed her. On stage at the next summit, I spoke to a world that listened. "We don't just survive storms," I said, "we become them." The applause was thunder, but I felt peace. Ekstrom was the last ghost I'd bury. New challenges loomed, rivals, innovations, the unknown. I welcomed them. This was my life unbroken, unstoppable, and I was ready.